Welcome and thank you for joining us. You are listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As many of us approach midlife, some of the things that we see begin to wane. Just are those little things like muscle aches and the ability to kind of summon the energy we used to have as children. One of the other things, too, that usually gets tied into aging is the loss of eyesight, or at least lower functioning eyesight. So what happens is we go in, we see somebody who makes us take an eye test. The next thing you know, they're putting on prescription glasses. Perhaps it starts off with something as easy as reading glasses. And then eventually it's driving glasses. Then eventually it's glasses or perhaps contact lenses in case we want to keep that sexy appeal without those heavy frames. And before you know it, the thicknesses just keep getting thicker and thicker to the point that we just no longer can function and come to depend on using glasses. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is a wonderful person who works in the field of vision to help people not only with prevention in case you already have 20/20 vision to keep it nice and sharp, but if you start to see such debilitating things as cataracts, glaucoma, or optic neuritis. He approaches it from a natural way. In his book, Vision for Life, he outlines 10 steps to natural eyesight improvement. And I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our special guest, Mr. Meir Schneider.
Hi.
Meir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm sitting here in sunny Santa Cruz, basically, and I'm speaking to you. I took some time off, and it's such a nice thing to speak to you on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I was really looking forward. I just decided if I do a book campaign for my new book, Vision for Life, that was already published in Portuguese before it was published in English, and is going to be translated to the Czech language, Hebrew language, German, and Chinese. It would be nice for me to come to a wonderful city like Portland, and I'm also going to go to Washington, in Seattle. So I think it's really nice to come to the Northwest where I wasn't for so many years and bring my work and my message back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that you're very well known. You're considered one of the 10 most inspirational people by an Israel Top News Israeli program here that I understand.
Right.
And the idea that you actually pursue this from a natural perspective, and as you have just said, your book is to be translated in several other languages, it's quite interesting, especially, for instance, like in Europe. They really embrace a lot of natural healing modalities. And you take a look sometimes at the United States with all our technological advances, and it seems we're still quite behind.
It's interesting. I'm happy that we're in a program of people above 50, but I just want to tell you that Dr. Bates, who is the originator of vision improvement in the West, by the way, vision improvement was practiced in ancient time. The Tibetan yogis used to work on their eyes, and they used to do many exercises similar to the Bates method and had very acute vision. But Dr. Bates was very upset over the fact that in upstate New York, where he was practicing, there was an epidemic of nearsightedness. Instead of 2% of the children having nearsightedness, 6% of the children had nearsightedness. Well, I would love to go back to the same time. Today 52% of the kids in the United States schools have nearsightedness. In previous generations, I guess before yours and my generation, if you had glasses, you considered to be a weird kid. They would call you four-eyed or glasses. These days, nobody will call you anything if you have glasses because so many kids have them.
Right.
and in our age, they think nothing of a cataract surgery. Well, everybody has cataract surgery. And move forward 10 or 15 more years, well, everybody has macular degeneration. What's the big deal, And it is a big deal because, in truth, you can strengthen the eyes just like you can strengthen the body. And I want to say something very important. We have to forgive ourselves. We talk about 50s, about the fact that sometimes we're stiffer and it takes us a bit longer to become looser, and the fact that we're weaker and it takes us a little bit more work to become stronger. But here is the truth. I'm almost 60. I'm not exactly, I'm almost 59 right now, okay? I have no problem with the hot weather of Israel. I taught a class in the summer in Israel. I was one of the first ones who would wake up and swim in the sea before eating my breakfast and taking a 45 minutes walk to the hotel where I was teaching my class, and it was a 20-day class from 9 to 6 every day. I have no problem working in the cold weather of Winnipeg, Canada, and my circulation is fantastic. In fact, whenever I run on the beach, everybody knows I'm the nut in our place. I run on the cold beach of San Francisco in the cold water of San Francisco, and I run, the most I run is 20 miles, but my normal run is 3.5 miles, and people meet me and say to me, wow, when they see me with a T-shirt, what's wrong? Because normally I run without one.
Right.
So just to be clear, yes, we have to work a little bit more to become fit in our 50s, but boy, I can take anyone who is 20 right now without any problem. And that's a very important thing for us to know. I mean, your mind does two things. It doesn't forgive you for your loss and doesn't allow you to gain. And I think we should really forgive ourselves when there's a little bit of short-term memory, and we should forgive ourselves that it takes a bit longer to become flexible and strong. But by all means, feel free to become more flexible and strong, and forgive yourself for some short-term memory, admit them, and work with them.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's funny, too, because we get to a point that we think that these things, like, for instance, the ideal of deteriorating health is something that's supposed to just happen as we get older, but there are so many people that really break that ceiling very frequently that really sometimes amaze us, and we wonder, well, what do they do, that I'm not doing right now? And,
well, They do. That's the number one thing. They do something.
Right. Oh, there you go. That's what makes the most sense, doesn't it? Now, let's talk about, first of all, how you came to create Vision for Life. I mean, obviously, you've pulled from the fact that this has been going on for quite a long time. It isn't anything new, but talk about how you got started in all this.
Well, I was born with cataracts, which is not very usual. Many people in our age start to develop cataract, but I was born with it. Only 1 out of 20,000 infants are ever born with it, and my 2 kids were born with it as well. And in this generation, things are a bit better in the sense that medicine learned that in the first 8 weeks of life is when you don't look at anything. But at the age of 8 weeks, every infant anywhere in the world from any population starts to look at things. Normally within 2 feet of the distance. They don't look far, but they look at the parents' faces. And then slowly as they crawl and they start to see more and better, and as they walk, they see even better. And in fact, at the age of 2.5, their vision is better than 20/20. It's about 20/15, which means whatever somebody who sees 20/20 has to get closer to the chart and see from 15 feet, they can see from 20 feet. They become really with acute vision. Now, if you take an infant and put him in the jungle, normally their vision will improve to 20/10. But if you put them in modern society, it starts to decrease from young age these days because of near vision. Now, I wasn't that lucky. I was born with cataracts, which is an opacity of the lens, and it did not allow light to go through. And then I did not develop with normal vision, and I had 5 cataract surgeries, experimental surgeries, experiment that did not work out, and 99% of my lens is scar tissue. 99%. Until these days, any physician who would look at my eyes would say there's no way that I can see. But with that 1% of lens, I was able to develop enough vision. I used to be 99% blind. I had 1% vision.
Wow.
And with correction, it was 5% vision. Now, it's uncorrectable, but I improved my vision to 70% of normal vision. I'm only 30% blind and 70% sighted. I always said in the past I was legally blind and now I'm illegally sighted. But anyway, nobody could imagine that I can see with the vision that I have. And I can see with it, and I can read, write, and drive. And that's the beginning of my personal my personal activity, because I felt that the rest of the world needs to know what tools they have. Because think about it, 99% of my lens is scar tissue. So when I had 1% vision, everybody understood that. But 99% of my lens remains scar tissue. It's just that 1% that works. I made it work so much better, and I connected between the brain and my visual system in such a way that I could see better. So anyone who wears glasses basically think that they cannot see better, but they can.
Now, here's the thing about eyesight this day and age, too, is that we find that a lot of blurring occurs as well. And, I mean, when you take a look at the fact that people spend a lot of time sitting in front of computers, they spend the time playing a lot with their iPhones and their handheld gadgets, watching a lot of TV, you know, those things there really aren't all that great for the eyes, especially with prolonged use. Tell us how that kind of can deteriorate, you know, eyesight to a level that, just isn't a good thing.
Absolutely, Daniel. I want to tell you that it is a very bad thing. Because to begin with, vision, I mean, if you don't talk about a genetic case like mine, and by the way, pretty funny, I was born blind to deaf parents, so I had my fair share in life in that sense. But if you don't talk about somebody like me, but somebody like you, I assume, or other people, basically what happens is there weren't so many cases of poor vision in the beginning of the last century or the century before. But the more people became literate, the more poor vision developed. And so the more people read, and when you read, you look from near, and the muscles of the lens, called the ciliary muscles, constrict, and the lens becomes convex. Now, it's good if it's constrict for 2 or 3 hours a day, but what happens when it's 12 hours a day? Well, sometimes then they don't relax. And also your eyeball becomes longer as you look from near to adjust very well to the near vision. And then it sometimes stays longer, and the picture then accommodates in front of the retina, and then you don't see well. Now, when you talk about computers, that's even worse, because they have pixels, and it's very hard for the lens to really focus on pixels, so you actually have to work even harder to focus on pixels. And in TV, the picture moves quickly, and you are not really in the picture. You can't really follow that picture that much. And so you put the whole thing together between the strain of looking from near for the eyes, and I want the audience to have a sense of it. For example, look at your hand, put it right on your nose, and see how hard it is for your eyes to look at it, and then look at a distance, and the distance is much easier. In the past, we were hunters. We were food gatherers. The news did not come from the radio. The news came from what you saw at a distance. And even until these days, captains of ships see better because they look at a distance, even though they use binoculars, but they look at a distance. And these days, normally people don't just look at a distance for the purpose of looking. That was your news. That was your what you were interested before you charged and started to hunt something. You used to look at a distance. You know, even in our world, the world was more boring about 50 or 60 years ago. People used to sit in one's backyard and talk to each other, and then when they lost interest in talking, they look at birds, they look at trees. Today, everything is too interesting. People are looking very much from near. People are looking at letters from near, looking at computers from near, and then the eyes starts to be rigid and fixated. And give it few dozens of years, and all kinds of problems can develop. And that's why it's so important to not simply wear glasses, but to work on the process, to undo the process that causes vision problems. And the medical profession is not helping us, because truth of the matter is, humanity saw much better 10 years ago than it sees today, and much better 100 years for the last 100 years than the last 10 years. And things are deteriorating, and that's why I find my book to be so critical and so important, because it's so simple to apply. People need the revolution. We need to start and work on ourselves.
You know, I'm kind of curious, too, because you see this quite a bit over the last 10 years, Mir, is the idea that people go and they correct their vision. They, of course, you see the ads when you want to get away from contact lenses or glasses, of this ideal of LASIK surgery. What is your thoughts on that?
I think it's pure butchery because, when you do LASIK, you basically are compromising the cornea. I mean, you're making glasses out of your cornea. You don't really change anything in the eye in terms of its nearsightedness. You basically are shaving the cornea to make them minus prescription, and then you see better. And you see better not forever. You see better for 7 to 9 years. So it looks miraculous. You don't need your contacts and things of that nature. But, nature made us in a very perfect way. The cornea and the fluid behind the cornea and the fluid and the lens and the fluid behind the lens and the retina, they all suit each other. They fit each other. They were made perfectly. And when the light penetrates to the eye, and all the eye needs to do is actually pass light and absorb light, so it will be transferred to the brain in chemical forms. And the brain then actually is what creates vision. But it's all harmonious. It was made that way. The moment that you start to shave a part of the cornea, the harmony is being broken. So you may see better, but you also will have problem with night vision because all of a sudden lights will bother you a little bit more. You'll have more astigmatism. All kinds of problems will happen even in the most successful surgeries. Now, when the surgeries are not successful, some people become blind. Some people can't even correct the vision as much as they used to correct it with glasses. That's in the fewer cases, but since they do something like 2,000 LASIKs a day, those few cases come to the hundreds of thousands these days. So basically what I want to say is that I really think that the best solution is the slow solution. Many people like shortcuts, and shortcuts work very well for short terms, but they don't work for long terms. I'll give you an example of a failure of LASIK. For example, one nice African-American lady had the LASIK surgery, and she saw very well after the LASIK surgery, no problem. Then about 6 years later, she started to lose a lot of vision, and it was because of glaucoma that couldn't be easily diagnosed because the cornea was thinner, and that, for different reasons, made it impossible to read her eye pressure, okay? And then finally, when she was diagnosed with glaucoma, they had no idea to how much they have to reduce the eye pressure to. And so then they did drops, and the drops caused her all kinds of allergies and problems. So then they did laser surgery to drain the fluid, and then she got cataract. So then they removed the cataract, means remove the lens, and then she got retinal detachment. What I'm trying to say is, you said the good doctor is one who's full of advice and very slow in giving you medication. The smart person is the one who finds a way for nature to help him. Nature is powerful. Nature is strong. We need to use it to the best of our ability.
Now, I know that you give a lot of real easy exercises for people to do. It's just a matter of doing them. Talk about a couple of them that you actually feature here in the book, Vision for Life.
Yeah, a very, very wonderful exercise is called palming, where you rub your hands. You first of all loosen up your shoulders so you can interlace your fingers, move the arms up and move the arms in rotating motion. Then you rub your hands until they're warm. You sit, you put a couple of pillows on a table to make sure that the elbows are elevated. You don't lift your shoulders. You don't put pressure on the cheekbones, but very gently you put the hands over the cheekbones and you visualize that you see complete darkness and, if possible, complete blackness. And you breathe deeply in and out through the nose, very slowly. Sometimes it's good to count 6 when you inhale and 8 when you exhale. So you really slow down your breath. And when you do that, and you do it in the middle of the day, it's like nice energy medicine for the eyes. It's like, for those people who believe in Reiki, it's like Reiki for the eyes. And doing that allows you to reduce the stress that the eyes have in the middle of the day. And it takes basically about 6 minutes to lead to a complete relaxation. The other one, and by the way, it's different than sleep, because sleep is passive rest, and this is active rest.
Okay.
It's a wonderful way to nourish your eyes. Another one, which is really great, is to look at your finger and move from side to side with your whole body, lift the opposite heel up, and you see as if everything moves opposite. And so comparing to your finger, everything moves opposite than you. And if you do it from side to side for a period of about 3 or 4 minutes, and you don't get dizzy because you look straight at the finger. By the way, if you get dizzy, you can, again, do the first exercise, palming, and that takes away the dizziness. But if you look at your finger and everything moves opposite, then you find that your eyes are starting to look at more details and start to see a bit sharper. And another thing that I want to say, can I talk about a third exercise? Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let's say that you put your 2 hands to the extreme sides of your field. So you put the right hand into the right and the left hand into the left, and you wave your hands, but you look straight. That helps you wake up your periphery. Now you close the left eye, and you can only see the right hand when you wave it, but clearer. Then you close the right eye, and you see the left hand when you wave it, and that's clear too. Mm-hmm. Now you open both eyes, and it's easier to see the 2 hands. So if you wave the hands especially. So basically, when you look at details, it's what we call central fixation. Your macula moves from detail to detail. When you look straight, you create movement, and that movement leads to activity of the periphery. Because many times as we look at computers, as we look at books, we forget that there is a ceiling, there is a wall, there is a floor. We just look at our text, and we basically neglect our periphery. And that's the reason for glaucoma, in my opinion, to a great extent. Eye pressure, because a smaller part of the eye is really working. And so that kind of exercise really helps us use the periphery. For a million years, we have developed peripheral capacity. If we went to the jungle, we wouldn't survive without peripheral vision. And now we basically are not paying attention to it, and with time we lose it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. You know, myself, even though I'm in the media business, I can't stand to use the computer for more than an hour or 2 a day. I can't sit in front of it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that's
and I see people
after 2 hours leave the computer, look at the distance for 10 minutes. Wave your hands to the side and rest your eyes from the computer. Mm-hmm. Because those who have to sit in the computer in a cubicle for 6 or 8 hours a day, every 15 minutes look away for like 10 or 15 seconds. Every half an hour look away for about a minute. But every hour, leave your computer and look away for about 5 minutes. And every 2 or 3 hours, in the middle of your day, look away for 10 minutes. Leave your cubicle. Leave the building. Go to the roof. Go down. The coffee breaks that everybody takes, the smoking break that everybody takes, you use to improve your vision.
Mm-hmm. Because, I really love sitting outside, especially, on days that are warm and even evenings, and just being outside. You talk about in your book how one of the things that people maybe get into a habit of doing is squinting. You
Exactly.
see that quite a bit, whereas when I'm outside, I just relax, and I allow to come into my vision whatever will.
Isn't it wonderful?
It is. It's really enjoyable. And as I know that you talk about in your book, too, it sort of becomes a very subtle exercise. It's, I guess, call it depth perception. You start bringing things into focus, and then you start letting them go out, and then you start trying to see. Another fun little thing I like to do, too, and this was something I learned as I was reading or studying Zen, is the idea of Japanese art is that the artist focuses on the spaces creating the solid object rather than the solid object itself. And so you find yourself looking at, like, for instance, if you're looking at a tree, you look at the spaces that create the tree and not the tree itself. And you kind of move yourself in and out of those things. And according to what I was reading, in Vision for Life, that's kind of one of those natural exercises that you do.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel, I want to tell you that I commend you for what you're saying now. You know, for 25 years, conventional medicine campaigned against the sun. And what really bothers me about medicine these days is that they basically pride themselves on denouncing whatever was done in the past. There was a time that there was an antibiotic in the world. And I'm happy that antibiotic was invented because it saved literally hundreds of millions of lives. But there is another side to it. You know, they used to have wound healing, especially in Switzerland, in the cold sun. They liked cold air and the sun, normally in about, 60 degrees, 58 degrees, not warm, but they basically did it for about 20 minutes every day, and they felt that when people would sit in the sun, it first of all would help their wound healing. Soldiers would heal much better that way. They also felt it really helped all kinds of contagious illnesses and all kinds of illnesses related to our respiratory system. These days, because antibiotic is so effective, we basically left the sun. And, you know, they really warned us about skin cancer as a result of being in the sun. But they found that for every one person that has skin cancer related to sun exposure, there are 7,500 people with osteoporosis because they didn't sit in the sun. And many times, actually, the cancer in the skin is not a result of being in the sun, but a result of genetic tendency in the first place. So the sun is so powerful, and I really, really suggest to all of the Oregonians and all of the people in the Northwest to use the wonderful sun that you have to the best. Medicine is going to slowly back up of all the warning that they had against the sun. They've convinced two Aborigine villagers to wear sunglasses, and the result of that fact was that first time in their history they got sunburn. You know, and everybody talks about how dangerous is the sun in Australia, but truth of the matter is, it's much more dangerous not to be there. And in the retina, you have a layer that darkens the light. It's 1 out of 10 layers in the retina. And the layer that darkens the light is called basically the melanin layer. And to make that layer work, it's the same pigment that we have in the skin. So the moment that you compromise the activity of the melanin in the retina, you compromise also the melanin in the skin, and you can have problems there. Now, let's talk about the other thing you talked about, which is so wonderful, and this is to look at the spaces. For example, if you read print, look at the white of the page inside and outside the print. It would make it much less strenuous for you to see the print. And the most important thing that we need to understand is that in the retina, one of the layers, and the most important one, is the photoreceptor layer. And the macula, which so many people lose macula, they have macular degeneration. The macula is the most important part of the retina. It is very rich with the cells which are called cone cells. So the retina is rich with cone cells, and it only has 1.5% of all the photoreceptors that you have in your retina. So you think that you see a whole picture, but you actually are quickly looking from part to part of the picture. And whatever encourages you to keep looking at smaller details than you tend to look makes you see better.
Now, I'm curious, too, what about people who may have color blindness, as it's called?
Then less of the cones are working, and the sunning exercise that we do can help them reduce the color blindness. That I really want people to look at the book, but also I'm going to teach a workshop in Portland rather soon, towards the end of April, they can come and study how to do it. But I'll describe it now on the radio for the audience. Still, I would feel so much better and safer if they came and studied hands-on or really read the book very well or saw my DVD, Yoga for Your Eyes, which is a bestseller for Sounds True. And this is how you do it. You close your eyes and you move your head all the way from side to side. And as you move your head all the way from side to side, you will slowly push the opposite shoulder forward. So it's not ear to shoulder, it's chin to shoulder. So if I move my chin all the way to the right shoulder, I will push my left shoulder forward. If I move my chin all the way to the left shoulder, I will push slightly my right shoulder forward, just to allow a full movement. That is the difference between us being at the age of 15 and the age of 55. We have normally slightly stiffer neck, so we need the full movement. So as you face the sun and your eyes are closed, your eyes have to be closed, the pupils constrict as you face the sun and expand as you move your head away. And all of a sudden, after you do it 5 minutes, 3 times a day, for about 3 or 4 weeks, the sun stops bothering you. You don't need your sunglasses, you don't need to be indoors as much, and you really enjoy the full rays of the sun, and it makes you feel so much better. So the only time you wear sunglasses is if the sun is in your eyes, the visor doesn't help enough, and you drive into the sunset.
Right, okay.
Or if you ski or something of that nature. But the sun reflecting from the road should not bother your eyes, and if it does, all it means your pupils are weak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was just going to ask, what were your thoughts about wearing sunglasses? And oh, gee whiz, so many people, it's more of a fashion statement than a necessity. But as you just said, if you're driving into the sunset and the sun's in your face, that might be a good time to be wearing them. Or maybe perhaps when you're skiing, on the slopes because of the glare.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Now, what about like double vision or night blindness? What usually causes that, and can that be reversed? Because it's kind of, harsh when you're out there driving in the evening, and the next thing a set of headlights comes up on you, and for a good minute and a half, it seems like, well, you still have that glare, even though the lights have long since passed.
So the double vision you're talking about, there's 2 kinds of double vision.
Mm-hmm.
The double vision you're talking about is astigmatism.
Okay.
And there's another worse kind of double vision, which is called diplopia, where the eyes don't work together. So the astigmatism is basically a change in the structure of the cornea, that instead of being spherical, it's kind of a little bit bent in parts of it. So instead of seeing a real clear picture, you see a fuzzy picture, because if you look at the moon, even with one eye, instead of seeing one moon, you see a moon plus 6 shadows of a moon. There is a wonderful exercise to astigmatism in my book, and I would really like people to work with it, or they can come on the 27th of April and work with me. And by the way, everyone can call our school at 415-665-9574 and register for a whole day of workshop, and we definitely will cover astigmatism. I'm simply saying it because it will take more than 5 minutes to describe it over the phone, over the radio. The other thing that you could do immediately for that night blindness is the peripheral exercise that I described to you. Just like we wave their hands to the side, we can take some nice lights. We call them magic wands. They're just small lights that you can hold that are in the dark. You can take a masking tape and put a small piece of paper between your eyes and wave the hands to the side with the lights in a very dark room, and it can actually activate your peripheral vision. So when your peripheral vision becomes a bit better at night, the light bothers you less. And also looking away from the lights would be a great thing. Like if you drive to one direction, if you can just slowly move your head a bit to the side and not let the light bother you as much, you would adjust to it. But astigmatism is definitely correctable.
Okay, great. Now you have a lot of...
another case by the name of diplopia. That's all different. That is when one eye does not work with the other.
Right.
Then if you see a face, you see double face. That also, by the way, could be worked by us quite well. And the first exercise I would recommend for diplopia is to put a big paper, a big construction paper. Sorry, I should not say big because it is narrow and long, from your forehead to your chin, and put Scotch tape or masking tape and tape it to your chin and to your forehead, and take a tennis ball and throw the ball from hand to hand above the head. And if you do that, each eye works separately, and that's the beginning of helping diplopia, because normally one eye controls the other, and we work on that. But also looking at a distance, and that's good for everyone, and doing it 8 minutes 3 times a day or 10 minutes twice a day, waving the hands to the side, really relaxes the eyes, and many people, it's the beginning of overcoming diplopia. I would really recommend they read my book, and also read my book, Movement for Self-Healing. I described how I helped several people with regular double vision to overcome it, and all that the doctors give you is prisms, and I really suggest not to wear them because they weaken the visual system. Now you talked about night vision, could be a pathology which is retinitis pigmentosa, and I just want to tell you about a wonderful guy by the name of Will, whose father became blind from it, because first you're losing many retinal cells, and then you start to lose your central vision, and Will's vision have improved. There was, all of a sudden, he was able to see shoes which he could not see before if he would look straight, and it was a result of doing a lot of the palming I told you. I mean, normally I suggest to people to palm for about 6 minutes, 3-4 times a day, but he palmed for 30 hours over a weekend, and then his eyes were hurting, and I told him, he's very athletic, I told him, you need to do something physical. So he ran for about 10 miles, very quickly actually. It took him only 80 minutes. Guess what happened? I mean, all of a sudden he started to see more side vision. That was a very, very interesting situation. So you can definitely improve your condition if you have retinitis pigmentosa and if you have night blindness. So those are the things I want to tell you. I really would love to see you, by the way, Danielle, on the 27th and work with you on your astigmatism. It's going to be from 10 to 5:30, and you can definitely register at our school, and it's going to be in Portland. You probably have the details yourself, don't you?
I probably do, but I'm sure after the show we'll kind of hang out on the phone a bit, and we'll collect each other's emails and take it from there. How does that sound?
Yeah. It's in the Process Work Institute at 2049 Northwest High Street.
Very good.
That's right.
Now, what is your website?
Our website is self-healing.org, and it's good to write to events at self-healing.org, and it is www.self-healing.org. So events at self-healing.org, or call us at 415-665-9574.
Oh, very good. Now, I just wanted to note on a couple of exercises. You got a lot of fun and interesting things in your book that, to me, was really surprising. You would think that most of the exercises, if not all of them, would be focused on just the eyes specifically. But, you know, there were things in here that I actually used to find myself doing when I was a teenager. And one of them is where you sit up straight and you basically lay your chin down to your chest, and then you roll your head around like, you know, you're rolling around a sprocket or a clock.
Right, and you can
talk about what that does exactly, because people would say, well, wait a minute, you know, you're kind of dealing with the neck here, but how does that actually help in improving vision?
Wonderful that you asked that question, because it's a very important question. First of all, we have one body, and if you don't have good circulation, nothing gets better. Second of all, and I'm happy that we're in a program of about 50, you know, most of the blinding condition that we have in the eyes have to do with poor blood flow to the retina. The retina is demanding a lot of oxygen. Mm-hmm. And if we have poor blood flow to the retina, it creates bleeding condition because the capillaries are being formed to compensate for poor blood flow, like they do everywhere else in the body. If, let's say, somebody is sick for about a couple of weeks, and then he stands up to go to the bathroom, he will find that his legs are hurting him. Partially his muscle deterioration, but the biggest part is actually not having enough blood flow. Very quickly, in the second or third time that he'll stand, the legs will not hurt him as much because capillaries were formed. And the capillaries will be there for a couple of weeks until the major blood vessels will open up. Well, when you have a tight neck, it restricts the blood flow to the head. And that creates many problems. The worst one, of course, are strokes. But and that also, by the way, could lead to vision problems. But if you take that away, it creates bleeding macular degeneration, which many people use Avastin and Lucenta to help it, but basically the bleeding started with the fact that there isn't enough blood flow to the head. It also can create problems like diabetic retinopathy or all kinds of retinopathy. All the situation when the major blood vessels don't work well and the capillaries are being formed, they leak. So all the doctors do is destroy those capillaries, but they don't destroy the condition. Now, when it comes to glaucoma, it's a mistake to think that all of it is eye pressure. Some of it is eye pressure, and by the way, the eye pressure is there because there isn't enough blood flow to the eyes, so there isn't enough circulation in the eyes. And they found that English gentlemen that tend to wear ties a lot have more eye pressure than others because of that fact. The ties are very hard on the neck and hard on the eyes. But more than that, in glaucoma you also have poor blood flow to the optic nerve, and that's how the optic nerve deteriorates. And also there is lack of balanced use of the eyes, which we have to start and use the eyes better. So when we sit cross-legged and move the whole body in rotating motion, and then we put the head on the floor and move the forehead from side to side, and then we put the crown on the floor and move the crown in rotating motion, and then sit again and hold the knees and move the whole legs in rotating, the whole upper body, in rotating motion, we loosen up the neck. And when we loosen up the neck, and there are some exercises for that as well, one of the results that we get is less eye pressure, more blood to the retina, and less blinding conditions. Less glaucoma, less blinding conditions. You can't be but a winner when you do all that.
Now, here's something, too, that I wanted to cover. Again, thanks for those exercises. I thought I'd bring that up because I kind of thought there would be some method behind what you were talking about that was related indirectly to how, vision works. Obviously, you want to, of course, increase your circulation, especially to the head, especially when you think that a lot of people who may be spending time, in front of the computer, sitting all day long, so they don't tend to stretch their bones and their muscles and, that sort of a thing. And, of course, as you were talking about, neck and head rotation. But the other thing, too, is that a lot of people, they've done, statistical studies on this regularly since the invention of this particular thing, but that the average is, about, I think, 3 to 5 hours a day is spent in front of the television. And, of course, with the advent of the big screen television experience, most of us build home theater systems so we can have the darkened theater experience. Now, what would you suggest to people? Because I would see how that, over the long term, we've always heard don't watch TV in the dark, but, now it seems to be evolving to encourage that more. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't mind people seeing TV in the dark, but this is what I want them to do, to change position every 15 minutes, to take breaks and do the palming exercise that I suggested in the beginning of the show, to rub the hands and put the hands very gently around the eye orbits for 6 minutes. So even if you take a movie home, there's a certain pose in the movie, put a pose and palm. When you finish the television show, work on your peripheral vision because you have decreased it looking at a television show. I think it's very important. And also in the daytime and even at night, work on your neck. I'm having 2 lectures in Portland before I will give my workshop. One of them, I just wanted to tell you that, is called Relaxing the Neck, Gateway to Better Vision. And it's going to be, of course, in the Oregon School of Massage. And I thought it was a relevant name. I just thought such a workshop with dozens of people who came to me in my own neighborhood in a health food shop. And people were very attracted to the idea that when you relax the neck, you help the eyes, because intuitively everybody understands that. So I think it's very important. Now, another thing that I would like to say to people who sit in front of TV and computer, if you have a backyard in the daytime, walk backwards as long as you know your environment, you're not going to fall down. Move your head from side to side to look at the environment. Walk backwards. Also lying, if your back allows it, lying on a ball, on a big ball, and stretching your arms backwards is also an extremely good idea. Do it for a few times. You know, my girlfriend, who is in her 60s right now, used inhalator. I said, let's stop doing that. We walked in the forest now, and I got her to stretch backwards and breathe deeply. Those inhalators, many of them have all kinds of cortisone products, and eventually it destroys the bones. Eventually it destroys many parts. We learn to medicate ourselves to comfort instead of stretching and moving. And there's two kinds of exercises. One is exercise for more capacity, and one is exercise for kinesthetic awareness. And if you haven't developed it by your 50s or 60s or 70s, do it now. Start to be more aware of your body, more aware of its needs. Don't just be aware when you're hungry or when you need some specific needs of yours. Start to be aware of how you breathe. Start to be aware of how you move, of how your joints are. Start to nourish them. And I think that will make such a big difference in your life. And that's what my work is all about, learning to use nature's power to your benefit.
Now, I'm curious, Mir, you know, you got a lot of great exercises in the book, and a lot of them look like a lot of fun. For instance, one of them is you bounce on a trampoline and you catch a ball, for
Absolutely.
instance. And it reminded me, actually, as I was at a science museum where there was an exercise they had where what it would do is you would stand, I think it was about 10 feet away, 10 to 15 feet away, from this gun that would shoot foam balls at you. And the whole idea was that it would shoot red balls and yellow balls, and the idea is that you would have to keep track. You could keep your hand out in front of you, but the idea was to see, you know, to give you an idea of color, I guess, color perception, of how you were able to catch the red ones, but you would tend to miss the yellow ones more often.
Well, let's talk about something else. If you bounce on a trampoline, and let's say that your right eye sees better than your left eye, it could be opposite, of course, then if you put patch glasses, because they give you some, this is my use of sunglasses often, I break them, I break one glass, and I put masking tape over the other lens, and so if you bounce on a trampoline, or just run in place, and someone throws you a ball, and you catch it, with the eye that you normally don't use, and then you throw it, you start to be in touch with that eye. You know, in the late 70s, in 1976, when I studied, 76, 77, when I studied anatomy and physiology in the University of San Francisco, my answer should have been that every single year we're losing 10,000 cortical brain cells. And if I wouldn't give that answer, I wouldn't pass the test. Today, every respecting physiologists tell you that we never lose brain cells, we lose connections. So what happens in life is that the moment that you overuse your strong eye, you taught your brain to not use your weaker eye. And the moment that you didn't use your weaker eye, but you only used your stronger eye, you have two problems here. One is that the stronger eye is overworking. The other one is that the weaker eye is trailing. You'd be amazed how better people see when they take the glasses off, and the moment that they took the glasses off and that weaker eye joined the stronger eye, both of them see so much better. And when I teach workshop, and by the way, to just give you a sense of how effective they are, I just finished a 6-day workshop. We measured people better than they measure in medicine. We measured them indoor and outdoors, from near and from far. Out of 24 people, 21 improved their vision.
Wow.
If in every population, 21 out of 24 would see better, this will be a different world. And it doesn't matter if you're in Portland, San Francisco, New York, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Tel Aviv, or New Delhi. It's all the same right now. We all see worse right now because of the fact that we use computers and because nobody in medicine teaches us that it could be done differently. This is why this book is a revolution, Vision for Life, and that's why I really hope so many people will order it, work with it, teach their neighbors about it. I want this book to spread like the plague, so to speak, and to have a new plague of better vision.
There you go.
Doctors taught you that vision cannot get better. I'm teaching you vision can get better.
Exactly. Now, here's one thing I'd like to talk about real briefly before our show here ends at the top of the hour.
Why does it end?
Oh, just because, that's just how time works sometimes. But, people have great vision by the top of the hour anyway, so at least we've achieved our goal. But what I'd like to talk about, first of all, how vital is nutrition when it comes to better eyesight? And secondly, I remember growing up as a child and hearing how eating more carrots would improve your eyesight.
Well, getting more vitamin A definitely helps the peripheral vision.
Okay.
I'm not a nutritionist, but one thing I can tell you, it's important to eat light and good, and it's important to keep your weight under control so you have more blood flow to your eyes.
I see. Okay.
The important thing here, exercise for your eyes. And if we're about to finish the program, can I tell you about one of my best cases?
Absolutely, please.
There was a wonderful lady in Brazil who was a dentist, and she drove, and a truck collided against her car.
Oh, wow.
And broke her forehead. And she had very good plastic surgeons to put it together. Of course, she had to stop practicing dentistry because one of her eyes became completely blind, the right eye, and the left lost vision to 3%. She used to see 100% in each eye. She saw 3%. And so she became legally blind. And I worked with her. And one of the things I've done with her is I didn't accept the fact that the right eye that was supposed to be blind is really blind. So we patched the left eye. I put a piece of paper in front of her right eye, and then I moved it away. And she wouldn't see the paper. She wouldn't see the reflection, but she sensed and heard when the paper would move away. And after a while, she could grab that paper. And the more she did it, the more she improved her left eye. And she improved it to 5%, which was very significant, and then to 7%. And then she came to San Francisco, and I can tell you she had to fly to Sao Paulo to Texas, Texas to San Francisco, worked with me for 4 hours a day for a whole week. And we created an incredible connection between us. And she have improved the vision so much that when I came back to Brazil a few months later, she saw 20/30, which is 90% of 20/20.
Wow.
And she returned to dentistry with special instruments. And now I gave her a call actually asking about one of my teeth, and she said, Mayor, you gave me my life back. She had the right eye that didn't see anything can see shadows and light and some figures. And the left eye improved the vision to 97%. She returned to be a professor in the university on pediatric dentistry. She says that none of her kids ever gets cavity, and she's a very famous dentist in her town, and she has a driver's license. If she improved, and that's the best case I ever had, who can't?
I couldn't agree with you more. It sounds to me like most vision problems are very correctable.
Exactly.
And very correctable naturally without using, for instance, prescription drugs, without using prescription glasses.
And please, don't do LASIK and wear your glasses as long as you need them, but see them as an instrument. For example, one of my clients said that she put one pair of glasses on her dashboard, another pair of glasses near the computer. A year later, she did not need the pair of glasses near the computer, and 3 years later, she did not need the pair of glasses on her dashboard. That's what you do. You use them like people use binoculars to look at a distance. Use glasses for what you need them. Enjoy the blur that you have. Do eye exercises. Take your time, and your vision will get better.
Yeah, see, that's one of the beauties of working in radio is the fact that you don't really see a whole lot of people, or you don't watch a screen, so you got the habit of looking around and just trying to imagine things.
Exactly. Exactly. And that you don't mind not seeing well. It's okay. I mean, you put them on if you want to make sure that you see a face that you know, and then you take them off. There's not a big deal.
Right. Now, if you could, Mir, give out your website again.
Our website is self-healing.org. And it's good if you write to events or office manager at self-healing.org. And please call us at 415-665-9574. We have 3 events in Portland. I'm going to be in the Renaissance bookstore and give a workshop there on the 24th of the month in the evening. I'm going to be in the Portland School of Massage and give a lecture there on the 26th in the evening. And I'm going to give my own workshop on April 27th from 10 to 5:30. If you want to improve your vision, it's a very good first step.
So now, just to be clear about these dates, the 24th and the 26th, this is of April of 2013?
Exactly.
Okay, great. And then the 27th will be a 10 to 5 personal workshop you'll be conducting.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be sure to have all of that with our blog spot as well as our newsletter for our listeners to know about these events happening in Portland, Oregon in April. Mir, thank you so much for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. You know, we just love bringing out the fact that you can actually start empowering yourself through natural ways. All you got to do is find out what those are. And there's too much that you hear out there, you read or experience that says surrender these things to other people who, you know more about these things than you do. You know, my optometrist knows more about my eyes than I do. But as I always say on the program here, you know, that may be fine. Go ahead and follow their advice, but in the end, you have to live with the results. So the question is this: are you happy with the results that the prescription gave you? And if not, then perhaps there might be something else you might want to consider, a second opinion that you might want to seek. And in this book, Vision for Life, a small little investment, basically everything you outline in here, you don't have to go out and pay or buy anything extra. You just simply go out and do these things. And you
have to buy construction tape.
Okay. Well, there you go. You have to buy a construction tape. There you go. Or a foam ball and a trampoline. Gee whiz.
But I'll tell you something else, which I think is very important. You know, once in Australia, I taught 50 optometrists eye exercises, and most of them started to see better. And one of them came to me and said, "That was an eye opener." And I think you have to understand that optometrists and ophthalmologists quite often are being trained by certain people. It's not like the whole world is searching and researching and they tried other ways. Some people decided for everybody else how things are, and the rest simply follow them, follow the protocol. Well, it's time for you to understand that the revolution will come from the bottom up. I have a professor of ophthalmology, the best one in the world, actually, the best pediatric ophthalmologist, recommending me big time. And I have several other professors of ophthalmology recommending me. But to get that to a research form is very, very difficult. Finally, I found a professor in the Weizmann Institute in Israel who will be willing to research my work. And the reason is they really are not open to other ideas. So I want the public to be open to other ideas. Eventually, you will convince your optometrists or ophthalmologists that things can be different than what they know. But now, first of all, improve your vision.
Absolutely. Mir Schneider, thank you so much for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. Hold tight and we'll chat and exchange emails after the show here. The book is Vision for Life. It's 10 Steps to Natural Eyesight Improvement. Be sure to find out more about this. And as Mir says, there will be workshops being conducted in Portland, Oregon in the month of April, and we'll be sure for all of you newsletter subscribers out there to let you know when that is should you happen to be in the area to find out how to improve your website. To find out how to get on that newsletter, be sure to visit us at beyond50radio.blogspot.com. That's where you'll find a nice little box there where you can sign up for our free weekly e-news updates. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past